Yes, now you can write your present in comment box. We are live now. Today we are going to start a new chapter of history. Weavers, iron smelters and factory owners. इस चैप्टर को स्टार्ट करें उससे पहले हम थोड़ा सा पीछे जाके बात करते हैं। आपने 6th क्लास में जो हिस्ट्री पढ़ी है वो एंशिएंट इंडिया से रिलेटेड है। 7th क्लास में जो आपने हिस्ट्री पढ़ी है वो मिडाइवल इंडिया से, मिडाइवल पीरियड से रिलेटेड है। और अब है about raise in your that what is the meaning of ancient and modern। इसका मीनिंग सीधा सा ये है, चीजों को डिफाइन करें तो उनका एक तो रूलिंग का फर्क, एक उन चीजों के हम उसका फर्क महसूस कर सकते हैं। जैसे एंशिएंट टाइम की हम बात करें तो प्रॉपर तरीके से राजा महाराजा रजवाड़ी प्रॉपर एक एरिया में राज नहीं करते थे। कबीले, जनपद, महाजनपद, धर्म, अर्थ, काम और मोक्ष, ये चार जो पुरुषार्थ हम जो जानते हैं, जो वेदों में, शास्त्रों में हमें मिलता है, वहां से हम इन चीजों को डिफाइन कर सकते हैं। जैसे धर्म की स्थिति किस किस समय में क्या क्या रही, उससे भी हम इसको डिफाइन कर सकते हैं। एंशिएंट टाइम में धर्म की प्रधानता थी, सबसे ज्यादा लोगों का रुझान धर्म के प्रति था। मिडाइवल में आते आते धर्म एक छत्र राज्य की तरह हो गया, एक पर्टिकुलर एक धर्म सिरमौर हो गया और बाकी के धर्मों को दरकिनार कर दिया गया। और जब मॉडर्न पे आते हैं तो धर्म की बिल्कुल परिभाषा ही बदल गई है। धर्म को डिफाइन ही विज्ञान के तहत किया जाने लगा। ठीक और चीजों को आप देखें, अर्थव्यवस्था, एंशिएंट टाइम में अर्थव्यवस्था में कुछ बदलाव रहा। शुरुआत में जैसे आजीविका के साधन, जो लिविंग के सोर्सेज थे, वो नेचर के ऊपर पूरा डिपेंड थे। इंडस्ट्रीज वगैरह जो आज हम देखते हैं वो सब नहीं थी। रॉ मटेरियल्स का इस्तेमाल हम ज्यादा करते थे। मिडाइवल पीरियड आते आते एक अंधकार का युग आ जाता है कि ना तो हम नेचर के ऊपर पूरा डिपेंड हैं, ना ही हम कोई फैक्ट्रीज वगैरह ऐसा कुछ प्रोडक्शन कर पा रहे हैं। जब मॉडर्न में आते हैं तो हम देखते हैं चीजें बिल्कुल बदल चुकी है। इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन आ चुका है, मशीनों का हम इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। जो रॉ मटेरियल्स हम प्राचीन समय में, एंशिएंट टाइम में डायरेक्ट यूज करते थे, अब मैन्युफैक्चर करके उनका यूज बदल रहा है, चीजें बदल रही हैं। तो केवल ये ओवरव्यू मैंने आपको जो बताया, इन तीनों चारों चीजों से हम ये समझ सकते हैं कि हाँ, समय में बदलाव आया है, चीजों में बदलाव आया है और इसी हिसाब से समय भी बदला है। ब्रिटिशर्स लोग आए, ब्रिटिशर्स ने हमारे जो रूरल एरियाज हैं उन पे कैप्चर किया, वहां की चीजों को बदला। उसके बाद में आपने देखा कि सिटीज में भी वो आप पहुंचे हैं। फिर आपने देखा कि ट्राइबल एरियाज में भी पहुंच गए हैं, वहां भी उन्होंने उन जगहों को कैप्चर किया है। आज हम जो चैप्टर पढ़ने वाले हैं, ये चैप्टर है वीवर्स, जुलाहे, जो कपड़ा बनाते हैं, उन लोगों के ऊपर ब्रिटिश ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का क्या प्रभुत्व रहा और उनकी क्या कंडीशन रही। आयरन स्मेल्टर्स, जो लोहे का काम करने वाले लोग हैं, जो आयरन ओर निकालते हैं, औजार बनाते हैं, उनकी माइंस हैं। जंगली जो एरिया है, फॉरेस्ट एरियाज हैं, जहां वो रहते हैं, उनके ऊपर क्या प्रभाव पड़ा है। और लास्ट में है इसी में फैक्ट्री ओनर्स, जो फैक्ट्री ओनर्स हैं उनके साथ क्या क्या चीजें हुई है। फैक्ट्री ओनर्स कौन है, वर्कर्स कौन है, इसमें हम एक वीडियो के माध्यम से डिस्कस करेंगे। एनसीईआरटी का ऑफिशियल यूट्यूब चैनल का वीडियो है जो मैं आपके सामने प्रेजेंट करना चाहूंगा। बहुत ही शानदार वीडियो है, बहुत ही जबरदस्त वीडियो है, इसीलिए मैं आपको वो दिखाना चाह रहा हूं। उसके बाद में हम कुछ देर डिस्कस करेंगे और अगर समय रहा तो हम दीक्षा ऐप के माध्यम से भी इसको जानेंगे। आप जरूर, फर्स्ट पार्ट है इसका, आप जरूर देखिए। और कहीं प्रॉब्लम आती है, रेज योर हैंड्स, You can ask any questions related to these chapters, related to any doubts for a better understanding.
Hello students, in the previous chapters, you have
Keep watching very carefully and note down any doubts, any questions. After that, the ending of this video, we will be discuss on these issues. Okay, now we can start. क्या मैं start करूँ इसको? ओके, आराम से देखिए, कंटिन्यू देखिए और ये अच्छे से बेहतर तरीके से अंडरस्टैंडिंग बनाने के लिए ये वीडियो
Indian Today, we will start a new chapter. We smelters and factory owners. Here, you will see a of British colonization, that its effect on traditional Indian crafts and industries, which in the textile industry and the iron and steel industry. In this lesson, we will focus on the Indian textile industry and how it was affected by industrialization in Britain. India was a famous producer of many goods during the ancient and medieval period, especially cotton textiles. It was one of the reasons why Europeans wanted to colonize India. But these goods were handmade by specialized artisans and took a lot of time to make. For example, it took 6 to 12 months to complete a patola sari. But all this changed with the industrialization or the mechanization of industries in Britain. By becoming the producers of many of the goods they bought from colonies like India, they were able to change the trade practices in their favor. During the 1850s, Britain became the most important industrial nation and was called the workshop of the world due to its iron and steel industry. This helped Britain to strengthen its power in India. Indian textiles were known for its quality and craftsmanship and was extensively traded in Southeast Asia, West and Central Asia. From the 16th century, the European traders started buying Indian textiles and selling it for a profit in Europe. These textiles were so famous that their names are still used in English and other languages. For example, muslin and calico. Muslin is a cotton cloth with a finer and lighter weave. It gets its name from the city of Mosul in Iraq. It was here that the European traders first encountered it. Calico is a much coarser and thicker weave than muslin. It gets its name from Calicut in Kerala, where the Portuguese traders had landed in their search for spices from India. There are many other words that show the popularity of Indian textiles in the Western market. We can see these from the orders placed for various textiles by the East India Company. Look at this page from an order book that shows the goods ordered by the East India Company for the year 1730. In it, we can see the names of some printed cotton clothes like khasa, chins and bandana. The chins and the bandana were cotton clothes defined by the designs on them. The chins cloth got its name from the Hindi word chint. It is a cloth known for its small, colorful floral designs, fine texture, and it is relatively cheap. It is made by printing and dyeing in a special way. This was famous among the rich in England. Even the Queen wore it. The word bandana originally comes from the Hindi word bandhna, that means tying. This refers to a particular variety of cloth produced by a method of tying and dyeing. Bandana now refers to a brightly colored printed scarf for the neck or the head. These clothes were commonly sold as piece goods. These were clothes that were 20 yards long and 1 yard wide. Look at this picture of the order book again. We can find the names of clothes from their places of origin. like Kasim Bazar, Patna, Calcutta, Orissa, and Charpur. Now find out these places on the map. Kasim Bazar is here and Patna is here. You know where Calcutta is, right? It is here, and Orissa here. In which part of the subcontinent are these places located? If you said east, you are right. From this, you can see that Bengal was an important center for the manufacturing of textiles. In this region, Dhaka was the foremost textile center, which is presently in Bangladesh. Jamdani and Mulmul were famous products of this region. There Look at this map of textile centers or Coromandel coast, stretching from Madras to northern Andhra Pradesh. Important centers here were Masilipatnam, Pettabole, and Tanjore. There was another cluster along the western coast with important weaving centers in Gujarat. They are Surat, Ahmedabad, Patan, etc. The patola is an important weave made here. In this fabric, the threads are dyed before weaving according to the pattern of the finished cloth. The fourth cluster was in the north, in Punjab, with important centers like Lahore, Sirhind, and Samana. Who were the people who weaved these clothes? Traditionally, weavers belonged to specialized weaving communities. For example, we have the Tanti weavers in Bengal, the Julahas or Mormons in North India, and the Sali and the Kaikolar and the Devanga in South India. These communities pass their skills from one generation to the next. In class 6th, you have learned how cotton clothes are made. Do you remember the processes involved? First, the cotton fiber is separated from the seed. This step is called ginning. Then, through the process of spinning, cotton fiber is turned into yarn or thread. After weaving or knitting, we have the woven cloth. All these processes for making clothes were traditionally done using simple instruments or by hand. Spinning was done with the aid of charka, on which the thread was spun, and takli, on which the thread was rolled. This was usually done by women. After the thread is made, it is woven into a fabric by using hand looms. Usually, this work was done by men. How was colored and printed fabric made? Colored clothes were made by dyeing the threads. This was done by the dyer or the rangres. Printing was done with the help of specialist block printers known as chippigars. The traditional textile industry and associated occupations provided livelihood for millions of Indians before the 19th century. Till now, we have seen the various processes and people involved in the traditional textile industry. We have seen how it has provided the livelihood for millions of Indians. But industrialization and the development of textile industries in Britain led to the decline of traditional textile industry and the loss of livelihood for many of the weaving communities in India. Let us look at what led to the decline of the traditional Indian textile industry. You have already seen how the Indian textiles had a high demand in Britain. In fact, they were so popular that traditional and newly established cotton textiles in Britain could not compete with the Indian textiles. Thus, many British textile manufacturers protested against importing Indian textiles. They also developed new methods for making clothes. Let us look at the factors that led to the growth of British textile industries. The British government enacted many laws to protect the local textile industry and restrict the use and sale of imported cotton cloth. The Calico Act of 1720 banned printed cotton clothes and restricted the use and sale of it in Britain. This secured the British textile markets from Indian textiles and gave the English cloth producers a chance to grow. High import duties were placed on imported textiles, so it was cheaper to buy British textiles. Another factor which led to the growth of British textiles was the development of new technology. In 1733, John Kay invented the flying shuttle that speeded up the weaving process. The spinning jenny was invented in 1764 by James Hargreaves. This helped in increasing the quantity of threads produced compared to traditional spindles. In 1765, Richard Arkwright invented a spinning Thomas James Watt, all making weaving faster. The power loom, invented by Edmund Cartwright in 1785, is to weaving. Thus, clothes could be produced in large quantities cheaply than traditional hand. These inventions helped the British textile industry to make large quantities of cotton clothes and export it to colonies like India. However, this did not affect the traditional Indian textile industry till the end of the 18th century. The Dutch, the French, and the English trading companies made enormous profits with the help of this trade. However, this did not affect the Indian textile industry till the end of the 18th century. The Dutch, the French, and the English trading companies made enormous profits through this trade. They used to purchase cotton and silk textiles from India by importing precious metals like gold and silver. But you have learned in chapter 2 that when the British took the political power in Bengal, they stopped importing precious metals and used the revenue collected from the zamindars and peasants to buy Indian goods. So what happened to the Indian textiles with the growth of British textile industry? Indian textiles had to compete with British textiles in the markets. By the beginning of the 19th century, British textiles had completely ousted Indian goods from its markets in Africa, America, and Europe. High duties were imposed on Indian textiles imported to Britain. Thus, it became difficult to export Indian textiles into England. British clothes flooded Indian markets. By the 1880s, two-thirds of the clothes worn by Indian population was made in Britain. European companies stopped buying Indian textiles and their agents stopped giving advances to weavers. Thus, thousands of Indian weavers lost their occupation. The weavers in Bengal were the worst hit. Distressed Indian weavers wrote petitions asking for government help. Many rural women who supported themselves by spinning lost their jobs. However, handloom weaving did not completely die in India. Because machines could not produce the saris with intricate borders and clothes woven with intricate traditional patterns, which were popular among the rich and middle classes in Britain. Nor did the British textile manufacturers produce the coarse cloth used by the poor. Thus, handloom weaving could survive to some extent. What happened to the weavers and spinners who lost their jobs? Many became agricultural laborers. Others migrated to cities and to plantations in Africa and South America in search of work. Some of the handloom weavers also found work in the newly established cotton mills in Bombay, Ahmedabad, Kanpur, Sholapur, and Nagpur. These cotton mills used advanced machines for spinning and weaving. Do you know where the first cotton mill was established in India? The first cotton mill in India was established in Bombay in 1854, and by 1900 there were over 84 mills in Bombay. Cotton mills also came up in Ahmedabad in 1861 and a year later in Kanpur. Why were the first cotton mills established in Bombay? By the 19th century, Bombay had become an important port exporting raw cotton to Britain and China. It was also near the black soil tracts of western India where cotton was grown extensively. Thus, cotton mills in Bombay could get their raw materials easily. Do you know who established these cotton mills? They were established by Parsi and Gujarati businessmen who made their wealth by trade with China. The town and Madurai smoothly and had to face many problems in the beginning. In the beginning, mills had to compete with the cheap textiles in Britain. Most countries had imposed on imported goods to protect and promote their own industries. But the colonial government in India did not afford any such protection to local industries. Then how could the Indian textile industry develop? During the First World War, the imports of textiles from Britain declined. Other countries producing even cheaper textiles than Britain. Later, with the national independence movements, Mahatma Gandhi urged Indians to boycott imported goods. Khadi became a symbol of nationalism, and the charkha was placed at the center of the tricolor flag adopted by the Indian National Congress in 1931. Today, the cotton textile industry forms an important part of India's economy as well as the world's. India is the second largest cotton textile producer after China. Students, what is the present condition of the handloom industry? Today, the handloom industry is declining rapidly. The increase in the use of power looms and the rise in the cost of raw materials has forced the handloom industry to resign. The government of India has noted this issue and has provided incentives and subsidies to the weavers of the handloom industry, thus helping them survive. Yet, much is to be done for their development. Students, in this lesson, you learnt about the cotton textile production in India, how Indian cotton fabrics were world famous for their quality and craftsmanship, famous Indian cotton fabrics like calico, chintz, muslin, etc. Important textile centers in India from the 16th to 18th century. We saw how the Indian textile industry developed with the First World War and national independence movements.
यस डियर स्टूडेंट्स, आपने इस चैप्टर में एक तो आपने ये देखा कि कंडीशन क्या थी, इंडिया का जो हैंडलूम था, पावरलूम, हैंडलूम, ये सब चीजें भारत में किस तरह से वीवर्स और आयरन स्मेल्टर्स डेवलप कर रहे थे। दूसरा आपने ये देखा कि जब इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन सामने आया तो ब्रिटिशर्स और अमेरिकन जो थे, जिन्होंने जैसे स्पिनिंग जेनी का आपने देखा, उनका जब इस्तेमाल हुआ तो हमारे यहाँ जो हैंडलूम था वो ऐसा होता था कि 10-10 दिन में एक दरी का निर्माण होता था या किसी कपड़े का निर्माण होता था, तो चरखे से और तकली से उस काम को किया जाता था। लेकिन जब मशीनें आई तो क्या हुआ, काम में जल्दी हुई, है ना, फास्टली रैपिडली उस काम को करना उन्होंने शुरू किया। तो उसकी वजह से भारत के वीवर्स और आयरन स्मेल्टर्स को नुकसान क्या हुआ, ये आपको देखना है। सबसे बड़ा नुकसान तो ये हुआ, हमारी क्वालिटी देखो, हमारी जो कॉटन की क्वालिटी थी वो बड़ी फाइन थी और वर्ल्ड में उसकी बहुत अच्छी डिमांड थी। बट उसके साथ एक प्रॉब्लम थी, यहाँ जो कॉटन बनता था, धागा जो बनता था, स्प्रेड जो बनाया जाता था, उसको काफी दिन लग जाते थे, तो काफी लोग उसके रोजगार में लगते थे, तो वो काफी दिन लगते थे, तो इसकी वजह से वो कॉस्टली हो जाता था। यहाँ से जब एक्सपोर्ट किया जाता था तो वो कॉस्टली बन जाता था। अब वहां जब विदेशों में, जब इंग्लैंड में स्पिनिंग जेनी का आविष्कार हुआ तो धागा बहुत जल्दी बनने लग गया। जो 10 लोग काम करते थे वो एक मशीन का काम आसान हो गया, तो मशीन ने फटाफट से उस काम को जल्दी से किया। तो अब ये डिफीट करने लग गए भारत के कॉटन को। क्वालिटी तो इतनी बेहतर नहीं थी, लेकिन फिर भी इसकी नकल करके उन लोगों ने क्वालिटी की भी नकल करने की कोशिश की और आसानी से कपड़े बनने लगी। तो यहाँ के जो वीवर्स थे, जो आयरन स्मेल्टर्स थे, ये लोग अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का शिकार हो गए। और इसकी वजह से फिर क्या हुआ, जब इनको रोजगार नहीं मिला, इनके जो मार्केट्स थे वो डाउन हो गए, तो ब्रिटिश जो गवर्नमेंट थी उन्होंने प्लांटेशन में इन लोगों को, चाय के प्लांटेशन के लिए, जैसे चाइना में इनको ले जाकर के रोजगार है नहीं, तो ये रोजगार तलाश। दूसरा, आप यहाँ स्क्रीन में कि क्या क्या चीजें हमने पढ़ी है इसमें, कि हाउ कॉटन फैब्रिक्स वर वर्ल्ड फेमस फॉर देयर क्वालिटी एंड क्राफ्टमैनशिप। अपनी क्वालिटी की वजह से भारत का जो कॉटन बड़ा फेमस था उस समय। फेमस इंडियन कॉटन फैब्रिक्स लाइक कैलिको, और कौन कौन से थे उसमें हमने भी देखा। कैलिको, कालीकट जो केरल में है वहां का ये कपड़ा है एक, तो ये फैब्रिक वहां का फेमस था। छींट, या इसी को हम छींट बोलते हैं आज, है ना, ये भी बड़ा अपनी क्वालिटी की वजह से फेमस था। और मसलिन, जो मसलिन आपने मैप में भी देखा होगा, मोसुल एक इराक में एक नगर है, इराक ईरान में मोसुल, वहां का ये कपड़ा है जो फेमस रहा है, भारत के बिल्कुल क्लोज रहा है, पास में रहा है। तो भारत में भी इस कपड़े का इस्तेमाल काफी होता था। इम्पोर्टेंट टेक्सटाइल सेंटर्स इन इंडिया फ्रॉम द 16th to 18th सेंचुरी। उस समय कौन कौन से टेक्सटाइल सेंटर्स थे वो आपने इसमें देखा। इसके बाद में हमने देखा कि किस प्रकार इंडियन टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री डेवलप होती है फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के समय में और नेशनल इंडिपेंडेंस मूवमेंट के दौरान। ये सब चीजें हमने इसमें पढ़ी है। इसी के साथ हम एक वीडियो और है वो भी हम इसमें देखेंगे। तो दोनों वीडियो जब देखोगे आप, तब जाकर के बेटा आपका ये चैप्टर कंप्लीट होगा। आप उसको भी ध्यान से देखिए, मैं आपको वो प्रेजेंट कर रहा हूँ। प्लीज शांति बनाए रखें और उस वीडियो को ध्यान पूर्वक देखेंगे आप, है ना। मैं आपको स्क्रीन प्रेजेंट करके बता रहा हूँ, और फिर कोई भी प्रॉब्लम होगी, कोई भी आपको डाउट्स होंगे तो हम उसके ऊपर डिस्कस करेंगे। ओके, आप ऐसा ना समझे कि वीडियो दिखाने के बाद में हम इसको यहीं पे लेफ्ट कर देंगे, ऐसा नहीं है। हम प्रॉपर तरीके से डिस्कस करेंगे। पार्ट 2 इसका जो है उसको भी अभी देख लीजिए। देख पा रहे हैं सभी लोग? क्या स्क्रीन प्रेजेंट हो रही है बेटा सभी को?
यस सर। यस सर।
यस
ओके,
यस सर।
देखिए 15 मिनट का वीडियो है, उसके बाद में हम इसके ऊपर डिस्कस, समय बचता है तो, नहीं तो हम नेक्स्ट क्लास में कुछ देर हम इसके ऊपर डिस्कस करेंगे। आपको फिर चैप्टर पढ़ना है ये, और जहां प्रॉब्लम हो उसको अंडरलाइन कर लेना। फिर जब नेक्स्ट क्लास कोई सी भी हो आप अपने क्वेश्चंस मुझे पूछेंगे। ये वीडियोस मैं आपको ग्रुप पे भी शेयर कर दूंगा। ये कंपाइल वीडियो बन जाएगा एक पूरी क्लास का, इसको मैं यूट्यूब पे भी डाल दूंगा, तो आप वहां देख सकते हैं। सो प्लीज वॉच दिस वीडियो केयरफुली।
Hello students, a very good day to you. Today we are continuing with the second episode of this chapter, Weavers, Iron Smelters and Factory Workers. The second chapter concentrates on the development of the iron and steel.
हाँ बेटा बोलिए।
सर साउंड इको हो रहा है।
ठीक है बेटा, मैं कर रहा हूँ इसको।
सर आपका माइक बंद कर लीजिए।
Steel industries in India. Chapter, Weavers, Iron Smelters and Factory Workers. The second chapter concentrates on the development of the iron and steel industries in India. Some of the major concepts of this lesson are history of hot steel, manufacturing of hot steel, and about the smelters at the time of the colonial rule. Decline of steel industries and reasons for it, history of Tata Steel and iron industries in India, and the growing popularity of iron and steel at the time of World War I. The learning outcomes will be that learners will be able to appreciate the steel making industry of India. Learners will acquire knowledge about Indian steel industry, and learners will be able to comprehend the growth of Indian steel industries during World War I. My dear students, in the previous lesson you learnt about the textile industry during the colonial rule. Now in this lesson you will learn about another popular industry which flourished during the colonial rule, that is the iron and steel industry. You will learn about the history of iron and steel industry during the colonial rule and how it progressed during that period. India can be told with the story Tipu Sultan, who ruled the state of Mysore from 1782 to 1790. He fought 4 wars with the British and he died in one of the battles with the East End. In this image, you will see Tipu Sultan's sword. Can you tell me what metal is used to make this sword? Yes, you are absolutely right. It is made out of steel. Tipu's sword is very special because it is made out of a special steel called hoods. It mainly consists of crystals carbon and it gives a water flow pattern to the sword. This water flow pattern could rip the armor of any enemies. This quality of the sword came from a special high carbon steel called hoods, which was manufactured all over South India. Please see this image to have a better understanding of the hood steel. Hoods is an anglicized version for Kannada word hokku. In Telugu it is called as hokku, and in Tamil and Malayalam it is called as hurukku. European traveller Francis Buchanan, who toured Mysore in 1800, gave a detailed account of the technique of manufacturing hood steel in the hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. In these furnaces, iron was mixed with charcoal and put in small clay pots. Through controlled temperature, steel ingots were made by the smelters to produce swords not only in India but also in West and Central Asia. Dear students, do you know who Michael Faraday is? Yes, you are right. He is the eminent scientist who discovered electricity and electromagnetism. He also studied the special properties of hot steel for a period of 4 years, that is from 1818 to 1822. Hot steel was produced by smelters till the end of the 19th century. Every district had smelters, especially Bihar and Central India. Local deposits of ore were used by the smelters to produce implements and tools of daily use. The hot steel was produced with the help of furnaces which were made of clay and sun-dried bricks. The smelting of iron was done by men and the women pumped the bellows to keep the charcoal burning. See the image of the bellows that is shown here. This bellows will help to pump air to keep the fire burning. But this sword and armor making industry faced a slow death after the conquest of India by the British. The hot steel making process was completely lost by the mid 19th century. The reason behind this was that when British conquered India, India was forced to import iron and steel from Britain. This displayed the iron and steel industry of India, and many smelters lost their job due to this. Because of these factors, the iron and steel production in India at that period also lowered. By the early 20th century, the artisans producing iron and steel faced another tough competition from the upcoming iron and steel industries in India. Students, can you guess the reasons now as to why the from the country? That is Abadan, the villages. The heart of iron smelting declined during the late century. What may be your history book, you would have studied about the new forest laws which were implemented by the colonial rule to protect the forest areas. But this affected the iron smelters who now did not have access to go to the forest to collect woods for their furnaces to make iron. Even when the permission was given by the government for these smelters to collect wood from the forest, they were taxed very heavily. Iron and steel were imported from Britain during the late 19th century. The lack of access to forest woods made the iron smelters to procure these imported iron and steel from Britain to produce utensils and other implements. This gradually reduced the demand for the production of local iron and steel. Thus, the import of British steel lessened the demand for the iron produced by our smelter. You can see this image here. This picture depicts a village in central India where the Agarias, a community of iron smelters, live. These iron smelters, who faced hardship due to famines and low demand for their iron, deserted their villages and migrated to other parts of India in search of work. Most of them never walked their furnaces again. My dear student, you have now learned about the superb quality of the hot steel produced in India at the advent of the British rule. You also learned how this flourishing industry declined because of two factors. One was the forest laws brought by the colonial rule, and another due to the import of iron and steel from Britain. There was also another reason as to why the traditional iron and steel industry declined. It was due to the competition that was coming up from the upcoming new iron and steel industries like TISCO. Can you tell me what is TISCO? Yes, you are right. TISCO refers to Tata Iron and Steel Company, which is world famous for its quality steel. Let us now know the story of how this prestigious and world famous steel industry came up in India. Let us start with the story of Jamshedji Tata, the founding father of Tata Industries in India. He was very keen to establish an iron and steel industry in India. He met eminent geologist Charles Perrin Page of USA and requested his help to establish an iron and steel industry in India. Charles Page Perrin agreed, and initially he sent his partner C.M. Well to do the groundwork. Due to the failing health of Jamsetji Tata, his son Darobji Tata accompanied CM Weld in search of areas rich in iron ore resources. They travelled extensively for months. One fine day, they met a group of men carrying a basket load of iron ores. They were Agarias. Who were Agarias? Please recall, students, that in the previous part of this episode, we learned that Agarias were the traditional iron smelters. When CM Wald and Darabji Tata questioned from where they got these iron ore resources, they pointed to an hill called Rajara Hills situated in Chhattisgarh. Dorabji Tata and CM Wells explored the area, and CM Wells declared it as the rich and finest source of iron ore in the world. But the problem was fine day they found had rich deposits of iron ore resource. The Agarias had also helped in the discovery of source of iron which is now supplying to the Bhilai steel plant. A large part of the forest area near the river was cleared to set up the industrial township called Jamshedpur, and TISCO came into existence in 1912. It started producing steel which changed the country's landscape of iron and steel industries. As you are already aware, India was importing steel from Great Britain, and British experts did not believe in the quality of steel manufactured in India. TISCO was established at the right time because of the World War I. The World War I led to the decline of import of British steel to the Indian economy. This gave rise to demand for TISCO steel. TISCO supplied steel for manufacturing rails in India and for producing cells and carriage wheels for the war. By 1919, TISCO was supplying 90% of India's steel. Over a period of time, TISCO became the biggest producer of iron and steel in the economy. The Indian industries began to develop because of the following factors. The first one was the World War I, and the second factor was the nationalist movement. During the last decades of the colonial rule, the British government was forced to accede to the demands of the Indian industries to provide protection for them. My dear students, I hope you have understood this lesson, and now we will summarize the whole of this lesson. The high quality Indian
देखो बेटा, सबने लेसन पढ़ा है, ये है ना, सुना है, अच्छे से देखा है। अब
सर इको हो रही है आवाज।
ओके ओके ओके, नहीं होगी, अब नहीं होगी, देखो एक बार।
सर साउंड नहीं आ रहा है आपका।
रुको बेटा 1 मिनट, 1 मिनट, टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम आ जाता है, इस वजह से प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है बेटा। ठीक है बेटा, मैं इसके वीडियो को आपके ग्रुप में शेयर करूंगा, आप लोग क्लास लेफ्ट कर दीजिए। ओके ओके बेटा, जय हिंद।
जय हिंद सर।